Maya Reeves counted the crumpled bills one more time, her fingers trembling in the cold fluorescent light of the gas station. $5, 2 ones, 4 quarters, $8 total. It was all she had until Friday, and Friday felt like a lifetime away when your daughter needed breakfast tomorrow and the rent was already 2 weeks late. She stood beside her rusted Honda Civic, the one with the passenger door that wouldn't open and the check engine light that had been glowing for 6 months. The night air bit at her cheeks as she unscrewed the gas cap, whispering a small prayer that $8 worth of fuel would be enough to get her through the week. Work was 12 miles away. Ella's school was another 4 in the opposite direction. The math never quite worked out, but somehow it always had to. Maya had just lifted the nozzle when she heard it. A wet, choking sound followed by the heavy thud of something hitting pavement. She turned quickly, her heart already racing. Across the lot near the air pump, a man in a black leather jacket had collapsed. His motorcycle lay on its side, chrome glinting under the harsh lights, gasoline pooling beneath it. The gas station attendant appeared in the doorway, eyes wide behind his smudged glasses. He looked at the fallen man, then at Maya, then back at the man. "Don't get involved, lady," he called out, his voice shaking. "Just call 911. I don't want trouble." But Maya was already moving. Her feet carried her across the cracked pavement before her mind could catch up. She dropped to her knees beside the man, her hands finding his chest. No rise, no fall. His lips were turning blue in the sickly yellow light. Sir, can you hear me?" Her voice cracked. She pressed her ear to his chest. "Nothing. Oh God, please." She positioned her hands the way she'd learned in that free CPR class at the community center 3 years ago. The one she'd almost skipped because Ella had a fever that day. She locked her elbows and pushed down hard. 1, 2, 3, 4. She counted aloud, her voice becoming a desperate rhythm. His leather jacket was slick with sweat beneath her palms. 15, 16, 17. "Come on," she whispered, tears burning her eyes. "Stay with me, please don't go." She tilted his head back, pinched his nose, and breathed into his mouth. Once, twice, then back to compressions. Her arms screamed with effort. Her knees ached against the rough concrete. Somewhere behind her, she heard the attendant on the phone, his voice a distant blur of words. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The pattern became her entire world. She didn't think about the $8 still clutched in her other hand. She didn't think about Ella waiting at her grandmother's house. She didn't think about anything except the life slipping away beneath her shaking hands. "Breathe, damn it," she pleaded, her voice breaking into a sob. "Please, somebody needs you. Somebody's waiting for you." And then he gasped. A horrible, wet, rattling sound that made her flinch backward. His chest heaved once, twice. He coughed violently, his body convulsing as air flooded back into his lungs. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and gray, clouded with pain but unmistakably alive. "Stay with me," Maya said softly, steadying his head with one trembling hand. Her other hand found his, squeezing tight. "You're going to be fine. Help's on the way. Just stay with me." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Red and blue lights began to pulse across the gas station lot, painting everything in urgent colors. Maya's whole body shook with adrenaline and relief. She kept holding the man's hand, kept talking to him in a low, steady voice, even though she wasn't sure he could understand her words. The paramedics arrived in a controlled rush, their movements efficient and sure. One of them, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair, gently moved Maya aside. "You did good, ma'am," she said, checking the man's pulse. "Real good. He's stable." But Maya shook her head, backing away as they loaded him onto a stretcher. "Just make sure he lives," she whispered. She stood there for a moment, watching the ambulance doors close, watching the lights disappear down the dark road. Her jeans were dirty and torn at the knees. Her hands were scraped and burning, and the $8 were still crumpled in her fist, somehow forgotten in the chaos. The attendant approached cautiously. "That was something," he said quietly. "You probably saved his life." Maya didn't respond. She walked back to her car on shaking legs, slipped behind the wheel and finished pumping her gas. $8 worth. As she drove off into the night, she caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. Tears streaked her brown cheeks. Her eyes looked older than they had that morning. She didn't even know the man's name. Just that for a few desperate minutes his life had been in her hands, and somehow, by the grace of God and muscle memory, she had saved him. Friday still felt like a lifetime away. Part 2. The Unexpected Visitor. 3 days passed in the usual blur of exhaustion and autopilot. Maya woke before dawn, got Ella ready for school, dropped her at her mother's place, and drove to the diner where she'd been waitressing for 4 years. The breakfast shift was always the hardest, full of impatient businessmen who left small tips and never looked her in the eye. She smiled anyway, refilled their coffee, and pretended her feet didn't throb in her old sneakers. At night, she picked up Ella, helped with homework at the kitchen table, and heated up whatever she could stretch into a meal. Rice and beans, pasta with butter, eggs when they had them. Ella never complained, bless her heart. At 7 years old, she already understood more about sacrifice than most adults. On the third night after the gas station, someone knocked on Maya's door. It was early morning, barely past 6, the kind of quiet where you could hear your own heartbeat echoing in your chest. Maya had just finished braiding Ella's hair, getting her ready for school. She froze at the sound, her hand still holding the pink hair tie. Nobody knocked on their door this early. Nobody knocked on their door at all unless it was the landlord looking for rent or her mother checking in. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and moved slowly to the door, peering through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the same black leather jacket, the same gray eyes. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She opened the door halfway, keeping the chain lock engaged. "You," the man said. His voice was rough and deep, like gravel scraping against concrete. He nodded once. "Yeah, you saved me." Up close, in the pale morning light filtering through the hallway window, she could see him more clearly. Older than she'd thought, maybe 40 or 45. His face was weathered, marked by sun and wind and years of something hard. Bandages peeked out from beneath his open jacket. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but those eyes were sharp now, alert, studying her with an intensity that made her want to step back. Maya swallowed hard. "I just did what anyone would do." "Anyone didn't," he replied quietly. "You did." He reached into his jacket pocket, and Maya's hand instinctively tightened on the doorknob. But he only pulled out an envelope, thick and white. He held it out toward her. "For what you did." Maya shook her head immediately, her braids swaying. "No, I don't want your money." "It's not about money," he said, his voice dropping lower. "It's about debt. You brought me back when I was gone. My heart stopped. The paramedics told me if you'd been 30 seconds later, I wouldn't be standing here. I owe you my life." Her hand stayed on the door, hesitant. His presence filled the small hallway like a storm cloud, heavy and electric. She noticed details she'd missed before. The scars across his knuckles, old and white. The engine grease under his fingernails. The deep exhaustion in his eyes that spoke of a man who'd seen too much and slept too little. "I don't need anything," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Just take care of yourself, get some rest, see a doctor." He stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he tucked the envelope back into his jacket. His eyes moved past her shoulder, catching on something inside the apartment. The crayon drawing taped to the wall. Ella's artwork, a bright yellow sun and 2 stick figures holding hands. "You've got a kid," he said softly. Maya's chest tightened. "How do you know that?" "Because I used to have someone who tried for me too." A small, tired smile crossed his face, there and gone like a shadow. "You're trying, working hard, doing everything right. That matters." Before Maya could respond, before she could ask what he meant or who he'd lost, he stepped back. He pulled leather gloves from his pocket and slid them on slowly, deliberately. "You won't see me again," he said. But if you ever need something, anything at all, you'll have it. That's a promise." He turned and walked down the cracked apartment steps, his boots heavy on each stair. Maya stood in the doorway, watching him disappear around the corner. He didn't look back. Within seconds, she heard the growl of a motorcycle engine starting up, then fading into the distance. She closed the door slowly, her hand still on the knob. The silence pressed in around her, thick and strange. For a long moment she just stood there, heart thudding against her ribs. "Mama," Ella's small voice came from behind her. "Who was that?" Maya turned, forcing a smile. "Nobody, baby, just someone saying thank you." But as she helped Ella into her jacket and gathered their things for the day, Maya couldn't shake the feeling in her gut. The weight of his words, the promise in his eyes. She didn't even know his name. But something told her this wasn't the last time she'd see him. Part 3: The Silent Guardian. The first thing Maya noticed was the car. Her old Honda Civic, the one that coughed black smoke every morning and made a grinding sound whenever she turned left, suddenly purred like a kitten. She stood in the apartment parking lot with her keys in her hand, staring at it in disbelief. The check engine light was off. The passenger door opened smoothly. When she turned the key, the engine started on the first try, quiet and strong. She popped the hood with trembling fingers. Everything looked new, clean, professional. There was no note, no explanation, just her car fixed. Maya looked around the parking lot, her heart hammering. Empty. Just the usual scattered vehicles and the dumpster in the corner. She closed the hood slowly and drove to work in silence, her mind spinning. A week later, she found a bag of groceries at her door. Not just any groceries. Fresh strawberries, the expensive kind Ella loved. Whole grain cereal. Organic milk. A jar of chocolate hazelnut spread that Maya had picked up once in the store, read the price, and carefully put back. She'd mentioned it to Ella in passing. Just once. Maya looked up and down the hallway. The flickering fluorescent light buzzed overhead. No one. She brought the bag inside, her hands shaking as she unpacked it. Each item felt like a message, like someone had been paying attention to the small details of her life. Then came the electricity bill. Maya had been dreading it for weeks, watching the numbers climb while she tried to decide what to sacrifice to keep the lights on. But when she called the power company to ask about a payment extension, the woman on the phone said cheerfully, "Oh, that account's been paid in full, ma'am. You're all set." Paid by who? Anonymous payment, cash, cleared 3 days ago. Maya sat down hard on her couch, the phone still pressed to her ear. "Are you sure?" "Positive. Have a great day." Ella's torn backpack, the one she'd been carrying with duct tape holding the straps together, was replaced the next morning. Maya found it hanging on their doorknob when she left for work. Brand new, purple with silver stars, exactly what Ella had pointed at through a store window 2 months ago. Someone was watching, helping, quietly rearranging the broken pieces of her life while she slept. And Maya already knew who. At night, when she left her shift at the diner, she started noticing the motorcycle. Never close, always a block behind, sometimes two. Just the faint glow of a single headlight idling at the corner while she walked to the bus stop. When the bus came, the light would disappear. When she got off near her apartment, sometimes she'd see it again, a shadow in the darkness. It should have scared her, a strange man following her home. But somehow it didn't. The fear she'd carried for years, the constant awareness of walking alone at night, the keys threaded between her fingers like claws, all of it had quietly faded. She felt protected, watched over by someone who asked for nothing in return. One evening changed everything. Maya's boss at the diner, Dale Crawford, was having a bad day. He was always having bad days, taking them out on whoever was closest. Usually Maya. She'd learned to keep her head down, say, "Yes, sir," and move on. But that night, he'd been drinking. She could smell the whiskey on his breath when he cornered her by the storage room. "You're not leaving early again, Maya," he snapped, his fingers closing around her upper arm. Too tight, hard enough to bruise. I don't care if your kid's got some school thing. You work until I say you're done. Maya tried to pull away. Sir, I've stayed late every night this week. I just need to pick up my daughter. I don't care, his grip tightened. Then headlights flared outside the diner window, bright and sudden, cutting through the dim interior like a searchlight. A black motorcycle idled at the curb, engine growling low. The rider sat perfectly still, helmet reflecting the diner's neon sign, just staring through the glass. Dale's hand dropped from Maya's arm immediately. His face went pale. Who the hell is that? Maya didn't answer. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door, her legs shaking but her spine straight. Dale stepped back, pressing himself against the counter, his eyes never leaving the motorcycle. Go on then, he muttered. Get out of here. Maya pushed through the door into the cool night air. She didn't look at the motorcycle, didn't acknowledge the rider. She just walked toward the bus stop, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. Behind her, she heard the engine rev once, low and threatening. Then it turned and disappeared into the night with a roar that echoed between the buildings. The next morning, another envelope appeared under her door. No words inside, just a single $50 bill, crisp and new. Maya sat on the floor for a long time, staring at it. Gratitude mixed with fear. Confusion swirled with something that felt dangerously close to hope. She couldn't explain it, couldn't rationalize it, couldn't tell anyone about it without sounding crazy. But somehow, for the first time in years, she felt safe. Someone out there had decided her life was worth protecting, and he was keeping his promise in the only way he knew how. Silent, constant, unbreakable. Part 4, When Shadows Break In. Maya returned home on a Thursday night, tired to her bones but smiling because Ella had gotten an A on her spelling test. They'd celebrated with dollar menu burgers on the way home, a rare treat that had made Ella's whole face light up. She was still chattering happily as they climbed the stairs to their apartment, her little hand warm in Maya's. But Maya stopped on the landing. Their door was open, just slightly, just enough. Ella, stay here, Maya whispered, her voice tight. She positioned her daughter behind her, one hand pressing her against the wall. Don't move, baby, don't make a sound. She pushed the door open slowly. The hinges creaked. The lock was broken, hanging loose from splintered wood. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she stepped inside. The apartment had been destroyed. Drawers pulled out and dumped on the floor. Couch cushions slashed open, stuffing spilling out like guts. Ella's drawings, the ones she'd colored so carefully and taped to the walls, were torn down and scattered across the carpet. The TV was still there. Her laptop too. Nothing valuable was missing. This wasn't a robbery, this was a message. And there it was, written across the living room wall in thick black marker, the letters 2 feet tall. Stay out of his mess. Maya's hands started shaking. She backed up quickly, pulling Ella with her. We're leaving right now. Mama, what happened? Who did this? SHH, baby, not now. We're going to Grandma's. They spent the night at her mother's house. Maya barely slept, lying awake on the pull-out couch with Ella curled against her side. Every sound made her jump. Every car passing outside made her heart race. Someone had been in her home. Someone had touched her daughter's things. Someone knew where they lived, where they slept, where they were most vulnerable. And they knew about him. The next morning, Maya left Ella with her mother and went looking. She remembered seeing the motorcycle near an old bar on the east side of town, the kind of place with blacked-out windows and bikes lined up outside like soldiers. She found him there in the afternoon, sitting on a crate behind the building, his leather jacket draped over the motorcycle beside him. He was smoking, the cigarette between his scarred fingers, staring at nothing. He looked up as she approached, and something flickered in his gray eyes. Recognition. Concern. He stood quickly, dropping the cigarette and crushing it beneath his boot. What happened? His voice was sharp, urgent. What did you do? Maya's voice shook with fury and fear. She stopped a few feet away, her hands clenched into fists. What did you do that made someone break into my apartment? That made them threaten my daughter. His jaw tightened. Who came? I don't know, the words burst out of her, loud and raw. But they knew about you. They wrote a message on my wall telling me to stay out of your mess. Her voice cracked. I have a 7-year-old daughter. She saw that. She's terrified. I'm terrified. He exhaled slowly, his whole body going rigid. When he spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. You should have called me. I shouldn't have to call you, Maya shot back, anger overriding her fear now. You said I wouldn't see you again. You said you'd help me. Now people are coming after me and my baby because of whatever you're involved in. Silence fell between them, heavy and suffocating. The sounds of the city felt distant, muted. A dog barked somewhere. Traffic hummed on the main road. I didn't want this to touch you, he finally said, his voice rough with something that might have been regret. I tried to keep it separate. Well, it did touch me, Maya said, her eyes burning with unshed tears. It touched my home, my daughter, everything I have. He nodded slowly, his expression hardening into something cold and resolute. I'll handle it. I don't need you to handle anything, Maya said, turning to leave. I need you to leave us alone. But before she could take more than 2 steps, his voice stopped her, quiet, heavy with truth. They're not after you, Maya. They're after me. You just got caught in the light I left behind. She stopped, her back to him, her whole body trembling. Then make it stop. I will. The promise in those 2 words was absolute, final, like a door closing or a gun being loaded. That night, as Maya tucked Ella into bed at her mother's house, she looked out the window. The motorcycle was there, parked across the street under a broken streetlight. No rider visible, but she knew he was nearby, watching, waiting. She should have called the police, should have filed a report, gotten a restraining order, packed up and moved to another city entirely. But deep down, beneath the fear and the anger, something told her the truth. He wasn't the danger. He was the only thing standing between her and whatever was coming. And whatever was coming had already seen her face. Part 5. The storm breaks. The call came just after midnight. Maya jerked awake on her mother's couch, her heart already pounding before she even registered the sound. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, the screen glowing in the darkness. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her thumb slide across the screen. Hello. Get your daughter and leave, now. The voice was low, rough, urgent, his voice. Don't ask questions, don't pack anything. Get Ella and go out the back door. Run toward the church 2 blocks east. I'll find you there. What's happening? Maya, his voice cut through her panic like a knife. They're coming right now. You have maybe 2 minutes, move. The line went dead. Maya didn't waste time thinking. She ran to the bedroom where Ella was sleeping, scooped her daughter into her arms, blanket and all. Ella stirred, confused and sleepy. Mama. SHH, baby, we're playing a quiet game. Don't make any sound, okay? Not one word. Her mother appeared in the hallway, eyes wide. Maya, what's wrong? Call 911, Maya whispered urgently. Tell them there's going to be trouble at your address. Do it now, Mama, please. She didn't wait for a response. She ran through the kitchen to the back door, her bare feet slapping against the linoleum. Ella clung to her neck, silent and trusting in that way that broke Maya's heart. They burst through the door into the small backyard. That's when she heard it, car engines, multiple vehicles approaching fast. Through the gap in the fence she saw headlights flash, too many, too bright. 2 black SUVs turning onto her mother's street, moving with purpose. Maya ran. She ran like she'd never run before, clutching Ella against her chest, her lungs burning. Behind her she heard car doors slamming, voices shouting. Then the sound that turned her blood to ice, gunshots. Sharp cracks splitting the night air. 1, 2, 3. She ducked behind a parked car, pressing Ella's head down, covering her daughter's body with her own. Don't look, baby. Don't look. Close your eyes. The roar of a motorcycle engine cut through the chaos. Sudden, powerful, coming from somewhere to her left. Maya lifted her head just enough to see him tear around the corner, riding straight toward the SUVs like a missile locked on target. He wasn't running away. He was riding toward the danger. No, Maya whispered. No, no, no. Everything happened fast then. Too fast. Tires screeched. Metal slammed into metal with a sound that made Maya's teeth ache. A man fell from one of the SUVs, hitting the pavement hard. Someone shouted orders. More gunshots, these ones controlled and deliberate. She saw him fire back, still on the motorcycle, his movements precise despite the chaos. He was buying her time, drawing their attention, making himself the target. Run, Maya, his voice cut through the noise. Go. She ran. She dragged Ella toward the alley between two houses, her vision blurred with tears, her body moving on pure instinct. Behind her, the sounds of violence continued. Engine screaming, glass breaking. Another gunshot, this one different, closer, final. Then silence, horrible, suffocating silence. Maya stopped at the alley entrance, her body shaking so badly she could barely stand. She wanted to turn back, wanted to run to him, to help him the way she'd helped him that night at the gas station. But Ella was sobbing now, her small body trembling, and Maya knew she couldn't. She had to choose, her daughter or a man she barely knew. She chose Ella. She ran until she saw the church steeple rising against the dark sky. She ran until she heard sirens wailing in the distance, getting closer. She ran until her legs gave out and she collapsed on the church steps, holding Ella tight and rocking her gently. It's okay, baby, we're safe now. But when she looked back toward her mother's street, she saw smoke rising, black and thick against the stars. Orange flames reflected off chrome and glass. His motorcycle lay on its side in the middle of the road, the engine still ticking as it cooled. And there, slumped against a brick wall, she saw him, motionless, head down. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Every instinct screamed at her to go to him. But she stayed on those church steps, holding her daughter, as the police cars and ambulances flooded the street with flashing lights. She'd saved his life once. He'd return the favor tonight. But as they loaded his body onto a stretcher and the paramedics worked frantically over him, Maya understood something with crushing clarity. Some debts can never be repaid. Some promises cost everything. And some people give their lives protecting strangers who showed them a moment of kindness in their darkest hour. Part 6: The Aftermath. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee. Maya sat in a hard plastic chair with Ella curled in her lap, both of them wrapped in blankets the police had given them. It was 4 in the morning. Her mother sat beside her, holding Maya's hands so tightly their fingers had gone numb. A detective had already taken Maya's statement. A tired woman in her 50s named Detective Lisa Howard, who'd listened carefully and written everything down without judgment. When Maya mentioned the man on the motorcycle, the detective's expression had shifted. Recognition, maybe even respect. Jackson Pierce, she'd said quietly, former Marine, lost his wife and daughter in a drunk driving accident 8 years ago. He's been riding with the Devil's Sons ever since. They're not exactly a criminal gang, but they're not choir boys either. Mostly veterans, men who don't fit anywhere else. Is he going to be okay? Maya had asked. I don't know, he took 2 bullets. They're working on him now. That had been 3 hours ago. Since then, nothing. Just waiting. Ella had finally fallen asleep, exhausted by terror and confusion. Maya stroked her daughter's braids, the repetitive motion keeping her grounded when everything else felt like it was spinning apart. She kept seeing it, the motorcycle tearing toward the SUVs. Him firing back, creating chaos, drawing fire away from her and Ella. The way he'd gone down, the way his hand had lifted weakly to wave her away, mouthing a single word, go. He'd kept his promise, he'd handled it, but the cost had been everything. Maya Reeves, A doctor appeared in the doorway, still in surgical scrubs. Young, maybe 30, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Maya stood carefully, shifting Ella into her mother's arms. "Yes, that's me. You're listed as Jackson Pierce's emergency contact." The doctor looked at his tablet. "He regained consciousness about 20 minutes ago. He's asking for you." Maya's heart lurched. "He's alive." "Stable, lucky actually. One bullet went through his shoulder, clean exit wound. The other grazed his ribs. He lost a lot of blood, but he's tough. He'll recover." Relief hit Maya so hard her knees almost buckled. "Can I see him?" The doctor hesitated. "He's handcuffed to the bed, police orders, but yes, 5 minutes." The room was dim, quiet except for the beeping of monitors. Jackson lay propped up slightly, his left shoulder heavily bandaged. His face was pale, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. But when Maya entered, those gray eyes focused on her immediately. Sharp, alert. The handcuff on his right wrist rattled slightly as he tried to shift position. "You made it," he said. His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. Maya approached slowly, stopping at the edge of the bed. "We made it because of you." "Your daughter?" "She's fine, scared but fine. My mother too." He closed his eyes briefly, something like relief washing over his features. When he opened them again, they held a weight Maya hadn't seen before. Finality. "The men who came after you are in custody," he said. "They won't be getting out. I made sure there was enough evidence." He paused, his jaw tightening. "This is over, Maya. You're safe now, for real this time." "What about you?" A small, tired smile crossed his face. "I'll probably do some time. Breaking parole, unlicensed weapons, assault. The detective seems to think she can make a case for self-defense and protection of others, but I've got history. The judge might not be sympathetic." Maya felt tears burning her eyes. "That's not fair. You saved our lives." "Maybe, or maybe I put you in danger in the first place." He looked away, toward the window where dawn was just beginning to break. "I told you I had debts. Guys I rode with got into business they shouldn't have. I walked away, but they didn't like that, thought I knew too much. When they saw me helping you, they figured you were leverage." "So this was my fault," Maya whispered. "If I hadn't saved you that night." "No," his voice was firm, cutting through her guilt. "You gave me something no one else had given me in 8 years, a reason to care if I lived. That night at the gas station, I was riding to end it. You understand, I was done, finished, had the whole thing planned out." Maya's breath caught. "Jackson. Then you brought me back, literally pulled me out of the dark, and for the first time since I lost my girls, I thought maybe there was a point to still being here." He turned back to her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "You reminded me what it feels like to protect someone, to matter. Even if it cost me everything, it was worth it. You're worth it." Maya couldn't stop the tears now. They ran down her cheeks silently as she reached out and took his free hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong despite everything. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you for giving me a reason to." A nurse appeared in the doorway, her expression apologetic. "I'm sorry, ma'am, time's up." Maya nodded, squeezing Jackson's hand once more before letting go. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. "Maya, that little girl of yours, you raise her right. Let her know that kindness matters, that helping someone even when it costs you, that's what makes us human." Maya looked back at him, this broken man who'd become her guardian, this stranger who'd given everything to protect her family. "I will, I promise." As she walked back to the waiting room, the sun was rising outside the hospital windows, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day, a fresh start. The nightmare was over. But the memory of what he'd done, what he'd sacrificed, would stay with her forever. Part 7. Unexpected Brotherhood. 2 days after the hospital visit, Maya returned to her mother's house with Ella. The police had cleared the scene, but the street still bore marks of what had happened. Broken glass swept to the curb. scorch marks on the pavement, a memorial of flowers and candles where Jackson had made his stand. Maya paused when she saw the motorcycles. 20 of them at least lined up along the street like silent sentinels. Men in leather vests stood in small groups, smoking, talking in low voices. They all wore the same patch on their backs, Devil's Sons MC. She tensed, gripping Ella's hand tighter, but as she approached, the men turned to look at her. One by one, they removed their sunglasses. One by one, they nodded respectfully. An older man stepped forward, 60 maybe, with a gray beard and eyes that had seen combat. "You're Maya Reeves," he said, not a question. "Yes," she lifted her chin, refusing to show fear. "Name's Marcus Webb. I ride with Jackson." He extended his hand. After a moment, Maya shook it. His grip was firm but gentle. "We heard what you did at the gas station, and we know what he did for you." "I don't want any trouble," Maya said quietly. "We just want to go home." "No trouble," Marcus assured her. He gestured to the other men. "We came to help. Your apartment got trashed, right? We'd like to fix that if you'll let us." Maya blinked in surprise. I can't pay you." "Don't want your money," Marcus smiled slightly. "Jackson's one of ours. That makes you under our protection now, whether you want it or not." Over the next 3 days, the Devil's Sons descended on Maya's apartment like a construction crew. They repaired the broken door, repainted the walls, replaced the slashed furniture. One of them, a quiet man named David who had kind hands and a gentle voice, even brought new drawings for Ella to color and taped them to the walls himself. They worked in shifts, respectful and quiet. When Maya offered them water or coffee, they accepted with thanks but never asked for more. When she tried to help, they politely but firmly told her to rest. On the 4th day, Marcus showed up at her door with an envelope. Not the kind Jackson had offered before. This one was official, from a lawyer's office. "What is this?" Maya asked, turning it over in her hands. "Jackson set up a trust. Before everything went down, he made arrangements. If something happened to him, you and your daughter would be taken care of. Education fund for Ella. 6 months of rent paid in advance for you. Some money for groceries and emergencies." Maya's hands started shaking. "I can't accept this." "Already done," Marcus said gently. He was clear about it. Said you saved his life twice. Once with CPR, once by giving him a reason to care about living. This is him keeping his promise, making sure you're okay. But he's in jail. He'll be out in 18 months. Good behavior, self-defense case, character witnesses. Marcus's expression softened. We're making sure he's got something to come back to, a job with the garage, a place to stay, brothers who care, same as he did for you. Maya sank into her repaired couch, the envelope clutched in her trembling hands. Why would he do all this for me? I'm nobody." Marcus sat down across from her, his weathered face serious. "You know what Jackson told me? He said when you were doing CPR that night, you were crying, begging him to stay. Said he could hear you even though he was mostly gone. And he said nobody had cared that much about whether he lived or died since he lost his family." He leaned forward, his eyes holding hers. "You showed him humanity when he thought there wasn't any left in the world. In his mind, that's everything. And in ours, that makes you family." Ella appeared in the doorway, holding her new coloring book. She looked at Marcus, then at Maya, then back at Marcus. "Are you friends with the motorcycle man?" Marcus smiled, his tough exterior melting. "Yes, little one, we're his brothers." "Is he coming back?" "Yeah," Marcus said, his voice gentle. "He's coming back, and when he does, maybe your mama will let us bring him by to say hello properly. Would you like that?" Ella nodded solemnly. "He saved us. Mama told me he's a hero." Marcus glanced at Maya, and she saw the emotion flicker in his eyes before he blinked it away. "Yeah," he said quietly, "he is." Part 8. A light worth living for. 18 months passed like seasons turning. Winter to spring to summer to fall and back again. Ella grew 3 inches and lost 2 baby teeth. Maya got promoted to shift manager at the diner, and with the trust fund money, she'd been able to save enough for a small but steady emergency fund. The anxiety that had followed her like a shadow for years had finally begun to ease. She thought about Jackson often, wondered how he was doing, whether prison was as hard as she imagined, whether he regretted what he'd done. The Devil's Sons checked on her once a month. Marcus brought Ella birthday presents. David fixed her car when it finally did break down for real. They never asked for anything in return, just nodded and rode away, guardians from a world she'd never expected to touch. Then one Saturday morning in October, Maya heard motorcycles outside. Not unusual anymore, but this time was different. This time, when she looked out the window, she saw 20 bikes, then 30, then 50. They kept coming, filling the street, engines rumbling like thunder. Ella pressed her face to the window. "Mama, look, there's so many." Maya's heart started pounding. She opened the door slowly, stepping onto the small landing. The morning sun was bright, turning the chrome into mirrors of light. And there, at the front of the formation, stood Jackson Pierce. He looked different, thinner maybe, but stronger. His hair was shorter, his face cleanly shaved. He wore the same leather jacket, but something about the way he carried himself had changed, like he'd put down a weight he'd been carrying for years. When he saw her, he smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Marcus stepped forward, his voice carrying across the street. "Maya Reeves, the Devil's Sons MC would like to present you with something." The men parted and Maya saw it. A brand new car, not expensive but reliable. A safe, practical sedan with a bow on the hood. Her hand flew to her mouth. "We all pitched in," Marcus said. "Jackson too, from his work in the prison workshop. Figured you deserved something that won't break down on you. Something safe for your little girl." Maya couldn't speak. Tears blurred her vision as she walked down the steps. The men watched respectfully, some smiling, some nodding. She reached the car and ran her hand along the hood, still warm from the sun. Jackson approached slowly, keeping a respectful distance. "I know I said you wouldn't see me again. Broke that promise pretty thoroughly." Maya turned to him, and before she could think twice, she closed the distance and hugged him. Not long, just a moment, but long enough for him to understand what words couldn't say. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." When she stepped back, his eyes were bright. "You gave me my life back twice. Seemed only fair I make sure yours was a little easier." Ella appeared on the steps, her eyes wide with wonder. "Mama, is that ours?" "Yeah, baby," Maya said, her voice breaking. "It's ours." Jackson knelt down to Ella's level, his expression soft. "You take care of your mama, okay? She's special." Ella nodded seriously. "I know, she's the best mama in the world." "Yeah," Jackson agreed quietly. "I believe that." He stood, looked at Maya one more time, and then turned back to his bike. The other men were already mounting up, engines starting in a wave of sound. But before he left, Marcus handed Maya a card. "That's the garage number. Jackson works there now. If you ever need anything at all, you call. We take care of our family." The motorcycles pulled away in formation, the sound fading gradually until the street was quiet again. Maya stood there holding the car keys, Ella pressed against her side, watching until even the last bike disappeared around the corner. Inside the car, she found one more thing, an envelope unsealed. She opened it with shaking hands. The note inside was written in Jackson's rough handwriting. "You gave me something no one else ever did. A reason to care if I lived. You don't owe me anything. Just keep your daughter safe and keep that light of yours burning. The world needs more people like you. J." Maya pressed the note to her chest, closing her eyes against the tears. The morning sun warmed her face. Somewhere a bird sang. Ella tugged on her hand, asking if they could go for a drive. "Yeah, baby," Maya said, smiling through her tears. "We can go anywhere you want." As they pulled out of the parking lot in their new car, Maya looked in the rearview mirror one last time. The street was empty now, but she didn't feel alone. She felt protected, valued, seen. A stranger at a gas station. $8 she couldn't afford to lose. CPR performed on cracked pavement under fluorescent lights. It had all led to this moment, this gift, this reminder that kindness echoes farther than we ever know. Maya had saved a life, and in return that life had saved hers. Not with money or cars or grand gestures, though those had helped, but by showing her that her compassion mattered, that her strength had value, that a single act of humanity could ripple outward and change everything. She drove toward the morning sun, her daughter singing beside her, a community of unlikely protectors at her back. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Maya Reeves believed that everything was going to be okay. Because someone had reminded her that life, for all its hardship and pain, was still worth living. And that was the greatest gift of all. The end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Unbroken Gray Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.